Mardi Gras Scary Stories, Part 1. The Haunted LaLaurie Mansion, 1140 Royal Street, New Orleans. If you read anything about the ghosts and hauntings in New Orleans, there is no doubt that you've heard about the LaLaurie Mansion. It is one of the most popular stops on the New Orleans Ghost Tour. Sometimes people in the city won't even call it that, choosing to refer to it as 1140 Royal Street, or as the Haunted House. The fact is, in New Orleans, the two are the same. Shows like American Horror Story have made an already infamous location that much more notorious. Spoiler, be warned that producers took great creative liberties, as Hollywood tends to do. The majority of filming happened at the Herman Grima house on St. Louis Street. Probably for the best, honestly, as people claim that the LaLaurie Mansion is cursed. The ghost of the haunted LaLaurie Mansion. For almost 200 years, there have been reports of paranormal activity coming from this house. It shouldn't surprise many that many hauntings attributed to the slaves that Madame LaLaurie kept on the property. There is a room in the LaLaurie Mansion where slaves were often kept, and reports of moaning coming from that room are common. Phantom footsteps echo through the house with regularity. Many people who have stood near the house have reported feeling as if they were taken over by negative energy. A dark entity within. Despite all of the ghost stories and paranormal happenings at the LaLaurie House, it would be folly to assume that all of them can be traced back to Madame LaLaurie and her mistreatment of slaves. In 1894, a tenant who lived at the LaLaurie Mansion, the house was converted into apartments, was brutally murdered in his room. They found his belongings ransacked as if someone had gone through them. The police assumed that he was a victim of a robbery, even though nothing of value was found missing. An interesting account regarding this murder deals with the police interviewing neighbors about his disappearance. One of his friends claimed that he was having problems with sprites in his house. His friend wrote it off as his imagination running wild with him, but he did say something interesting. He claimed that his friend told him that there was a demon in that house who wasn't going to rest until he had met his end, which the man did in this house. It is possible that at least some of the ghostly phenomena can be a result of this brutal murder. It certainly is possible. However, nobody will know for sure until a real paranormal investigation team can investigate this location. Only then, by communicating with the dead who still reside here, can we hope to get to the bottom about the truth of the ghosts at the LaLaurie Mansion. During the schoolgirl years, the LaLaurie Mansion was for a very brief time also a school for all girls during the mid to late 19th century. At first, it had been one of a few mixed schools in the city of New Orleans, but politics during the Reconstruction era were convoluted, and surely enough, soon after the school at 1140 Royal Street was converted into strictly an all-girls African-American primary school. Within a short amount of time, reports of physical assaults came to light. We know that young girls would approach their teachers, tears streaking down their faces, with their sleeves rolled up. The exposed flesh of their forearms were scratched and bruised. "Who did this to you?" the teachers would demand. The answer was always one and the same: that woman. But these girls were young enough to be probably not aware of Madame Delphine and the devastating tragedy some decades earlier. Moreover, it was unlikely that the teachers themselves would tell 6, 7, or 8-year-olds about the starvation and immoral torture of slaves some decades before. One must wonder if the young girls were playing pranks on each other, or if their claims had some phantom woman had scarred them was true. No memoirs exist from this period, just a scattering of accounts here. Was the spirit of Madame Delphine LaLaurie responsible for the scratches, or was it something else entirely instead? A medium to read the house. Although not everyone believes in psychics or mediums, there was one particular instance made known to the Ghost City Tours team in which someone on one of our ghost tours happened to be a medium. Throughout the entire night, she had sensed things about various locations before the tour guide even told the story. But within the first sight of the mansion, the medium sucked in a deep breath. "Such sadness," she whispered as she rocked back on her heels. Pulling out her phone, she proceeded to snap a picture of the mansion. "The bricked-up window," she went on. "That's not where the little girl fell out of." The tour guide paused, simply because she hadn't gotten to the part of the story about the little girl at all. Nevertheless, she recovered quickly and said, "No, you're right. The story goes that Leah fell into the courtyard. As for the bricked-up window, I suspect that someone did some interior decorating but wanted to maintain the symmetry on the outside of the home." In the next few minutes, the medium experienced such a heavy emotion, like the weight had settled down upon her shoulders. She sensed the spirit of a young boy who liked to play pranks on the living, and the spirit of a little girl who was often nervous. "Did she feel any of the helplessness or anger?" the tour guide asked. "No," was the response. "Whatever happened then with LaLaurie does not visit the house any longer." Is this true? Have the spirits of the slaves who were once nearly starved to death in the house moved on? And if that is the case, who is responsible for the reported hauntings at 1140 Royal Street? Ghostly happenings to a guide. One of our guides was lucky enough to experience something at the haunted house on Royal Street. Lucky, of course, is a term used loosely here. On one occurrence, our guide was giving a ghost tour. They were at the LaLaurie mansion, standing just directly across from the front door. To the right, another group was discussing the tragedies of the LaLauries some 50 feet away. But there, under the quiet moonlight, the story of 1834 was slowly unveiled. All of a sudden, our guide felt a tug on her messenger bag draped over her shoulder. She stopped amid her story and twisted to look over her shoulder, convinced that she might find a pickpocket or someone intent on stealing her things. "Right in the middle of a tour," she exclaimed, as she regaled us with the story. No one was there, however, so she turned back around and got back into character. No less than 10 seconds later, she felt a tug again, harder this time, a sharp yank. Once again, she whipped around, but nobody was there. This time, she told her tour what had happened, and their faces, she said, were priceless. No doubt hers was, too. 2 weeks later, at the corner of Governor Nichols and Royal Street, our guide was out on the streets again, bringing another tour around. The LaLaurie mansion, of course, was the main hit. She had positioned her group under a set of street lamps burnt out for weeks. She launched into the story, but the minute she said the name Lee, the lamps flickered. Everyone in the group paused, a few yelping in delight. The guide went on with the show. When she said the name Lee again, those same lamps blew out. The light was gone. Was the ghost of Lee still there, still waiting to be spoken or mentioned? Was the playing with the lights just a method in exposing her presence to the living? What are your thoughts about this? Do you have the guts to enter the haunted mansion of Madame LaLaurie?